Welcome back to the Table Rush Talk Show. I'm your host, Misha Zvagintsev. Today I have a fantastic guest, Brent Peterson, the brilliant mind behind ContentBasis.io. Brent leverages AI and predictive analytics to revolutionize content creation. In this episode, we dive deep into Brent's journey from personal transformation to his commitment to emotional intelligence and holistic well being. We also explore his innovative approach to impactful content that truly resonates. So get ready for an insightful conversation that might just change the way you think about content creation. Brent, welcome to the show.
Yeah, wow, fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. And you're coming to us from Hawaii, and what a great, beautiful background for anybody watching or listening. Just know that Brent is checking in from Hawaii, so we've got a great view of palm trees, blue skies, and all that fun stuff. What do I want to say here? I guess first off, you interviewed me for your podcast, Talk Commerce, and anybody can go to talk-commerce.com and listen to Brent's awesome podcast. And I think I want to talk about your podcast before we dive into Content Basis IO, because it was such a fun interview that we did, and you started it very non-traditionally, I'd say. You fired with a question. Do you remember what the question was that you asked me?
I think I asked you, we started off with sort of what is your passion in life, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so I would love to ask you the same thing. I would say, hey, Brent, what's your passion in life?
Well, I think first, let's just say the standard answer is I'm devoted to my family. Of course, I've been married for 32 years. You have to have some passion in there. And I am 34 years old. But I think, I'm definitely a runner, and I try to steer all conversations to running. So that is another passion. And then I think I'm a techie, learny type of person. So I love to learn new things. I love to on the weekends. I love to do a little bit of coding and maybe write some Bash scripts or some Python, whatever it is that's out there. And I think that as a I don't want to say older person, but as a person in their 50s, it's always important to try to learn new things because you don't want to get stagnated into one type of thing, right?
Yes, I love that idea. Continue.
Yeah. So I think from both physically, I think that having a passion physically helps to bring your mental game into play, right? My outlet is by going out and running a long distance. Some people would say a marathon is not a long distance, and I would argue that, what is a long distance then? I mean, some people would say 100 miles. Okay, that's the long distance. But I would always argue that whatever you're doing, it doesn't have to be a marathon, it doesn't have to be a half marathon. It just means moving, right? Getting out and walking and getting out of your chair, getting out of your desk, out from behind your desk and doing something in addition to doing what you're doing in learning, right? Even the creative part of being in business and doing things in terms of how you're conducting your business, changing things up and not only just being in meetings all day or just doing your answering your emails. There's more to it than that. There's an approach to life that should be holistic and should be encompassing other things, all things. And I'm a firm believer in movement, physical movement.
I would agree absolutely. And I think as we get older, I'm in my mid 50s. I know it has served me so well to have a long-term active lifestyle. Both my parents were very active people, and a movement, I would say, right? So it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't need to be, hey, I'm doing a marathon once a week or always training for a movement, but up, moving about, gardening, outside walking, surfing, yoga, There's so many things we can do. Pickleball is all the rage right now, I suppose. But tell me, how has jogging, I'm running, I'm guessing a lifetime of that. How does that translate into life success for you? And is that too broad of a question?
I don't know if you could categorize it as life success. I would say that there's benefits that come out of it. I don't think in and itself is a success. Like I'm never going to win a race. You know, you go into a marathon and you're competing, if you're in the New York City Marathon, you're competing against 53,000 people. The chances of you winning are pretty low, right? There's no chance that you're going to go out and you're going to train and win this race unless you're an elite athlete and you're winning a bunch of other races. So you're not, you're really competing against yourself, but you're also putting some commitment into to completing something. And I think that putting commitment into completing a marathon means that I have to make a decision 16 weeks in advance. I have to then go in and plan on doing it, but then I have to put the work in week after week to make sure that I'm ready for that race. It doesn't mean that I mean you can do it in 3 weeks. You can do it. You could tomorrow you could go do a marathon without any training. You're going to feel really bad the next day, and you're probably not going to want to do another one. But to have some success at that is a commitment in time, but it's also a commitment that shows some results at the end. And I see success in the fact that you've completed something and you've gone through that cycle of training and all those other fun things that go along with it. And a lot of my friends would argue that it's not just the race that makes that is the that's the reason they do it. It is for the training cycle and meeting your friends on the weekends and spending 3 or 4 hours just chatting. I also volunteer with a group called Mile in My Shoes in the Twin Cities, and we will run on 6 a.m. on a Tuesday with people that are either coming off of the street or coming out of prison, and those type of people, this is a lifestyle change for them, and us just talking to them and helping them and encouraging them to continue to move and run and be part of a community. And really, what it is, it's all about community. Doing those things helps everybody to change their physical and their mental selves.
Wow, how powerful is that? Have you seen any consistent repeat runners or from people who that you're doing that with on Tuesday and on Tuesdays and perhaps seeing short, medium, long-term changes in them or benefits or attitude adjustments or I don't know, new perspectives on life or
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely there is a different perspective on life, and there's also a commitment into showing up for the group, right? It's one thing to say I'm going to go and run whatever 20 miles on a Saturday morning by yourself. If you feel kind of rotten, you may not show up. But if there's a group of 10 of you, or even you have a buddy you're going to run with, and you're going to show up at Tuesday at 6 a.m. to run, is a lot more commitment to do that, right? So part of that is seeing that there is a community that cares about you. It's not just you're showing up to run with somebody else, but you are showing up because you'd like to learn more about their life, or you'd like to talk about whatever the things are that you talk about during a run. And also that when you're in that run, when you're doing something physical like that, you're not ever going to get well, I shouldn't say ever, but you won't be distracted by your device. I'm not going to be like on my phone and like, oh, Misha, like that's not going to happen. Like, it's, I suppose, the same in surfing or even yoga. I mean, theoretically, you could sit there with your phone and yoga, but surfing is even more difficult because if you lose your phone, it's going to the bottom of the ocean, right? Um,
yeah.
so there's a forced conversation that happens because you are in community with people, and there's only one thing to do is run and talk. Two things to do is run and talk.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you find because you said, hey, you're parolees or people off the streets or whatever who are running with you on Tuesdays, I think you said it was. Yes.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, but there's a bunch of groups that meet, so the day doesn't matter, but whatever the day is.
yeah. Sorry, I thought I heard you say
Yeah, no, Tuesday is the day that I would meet. Yes.
oh, okay, cool. But I'm imagining you're saying I'm very active in the recovery community, so helping people get clean and sober and mentoring in that regard. So it could be people who are having some life challenges like that, where perhaps their alcohol and addiction is brought them to jail or the precipice of jail, divorce, institutions, death, all that kind of stuff. And when we provide that community and that support and volunteer like that, not everybody, but now and then we see radical life transformations for the positive, which is incredible. Do you have any experiences like that with some people? Does that question make sense? Or
Yeah, no, I that definitely makes sense. And we there is a group that meets at Teen Challenge, so that's the same. That might be a similar where people are in recovery and they're trying to change their lives and going maybe they're going through treatment, but they have a time where they can get out for and be outside for an hour or two, and we would meet as a group and run with them, and definitely there's a physical commitment that means that smoking is very difficult if you want to run 6 miles. I mean, people will do it, right? When we had we're the first run is always you do just 1 mile, and that first run, we've had people that do the run and they sit and they stop and have a cigarette. So it all depends, right? You meet them where they're at, but at some point, if we do training for a half marathon and we do training for a full marathon, if those people are going to put that commitment in to do those longer distances, some of the lifestyle choices that you might make if you are some of the lifestyle choices that you might make that which includes alcohol or drugs or cigarettes or whatever makes it a lot more it makes it harder for someone, and I don't want to say successful, but to be comfortable, let's just say being comfortable being physical for 2 to 3 hours,
yeah,
because that's what
I
it's
know.
about.
Yeah, I mean, I hear from some runner friends of mine that can be very meditative. It can be a connection to God, source, your higher power, call it what you will. So a lot of inspiration can come from it too. Would you confirm that?
Oh, definitely. It's a meditative. I mean, it's similar to yoga where you're in a you're with and again, this may be when you're not with a group, right? When you're just and like a lot of times I'll do that as well. I'll just go on my own and get my thoughts together and have some time to connect with God or however you want to do it. You have time to mentally get through that. And I would say in a race too, typically you're not sitting there talking to somebody. Sometimes I'll pick up a race buddy and I'll say, hey, I'm really struggling. We're at mile 18. You want to just walk, run to the end or whatever? But I will say that there is a meditative space in there, and there's an outlet in which maybe you choose not to go with the group. You choose to just do it on your own to try to, get it out of your head. I've had days where I'm sitting at the desk all day long, and 4 o'clock rolls around, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. We have a running group tonight, and I go to running group, and at 7 o'clock, I'm completely energized. Everything, it's amazing how mentally you can get worn down by work and then physically get brought back up in the same day.
Awesome. And Brent, anybody listening, watching, you can go to contentbasis.io, which is Brent's company. We're going to get to that in a little bit here, but you can obviously follow along with us there and check out Brent's podcast as well at talk-commerce.com. I love how you spoke to jogging movement, to running, excuse me, to serving you and your mental state and actually helping with your business because it provides that balance, that play, that re-energizing of the mind, body, soul. So super cool. Thank you for that. Um, I want to start with Talk Commerce. Tell me about that. What's your favorite thing about podcasting, or what's that do for you, or maybe riff on your podcast for a minute.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about a podcast is that you learn about your guest and then you have a conversation with your guest and you learn a lot from your guest, right? So um you and I had we you were on the show and we learned about a little bit about each other. We learned about what we're doing and um I always learn about it is a growing experience, not just a it's more than just having a show where you're having a conversation with somebody, especially when you're leaning into new technology or something like that. If I want to learn about some new marketing piece, or you want to learn more about email, or you want to learn about a platform for e-commerce, like that's a lot of times what we talk about. But the other thing we do, I go into is with founders and maybe startups and learning the journey they have as an entrepreneur um, to get where they were, or what are the struggles they had as an entrepreneur to get started and get going, and then, trying to grow and get bigger. I think those are the real fun things and the fun conversations that I have at Talk Commerce. And I will say that, I started Talk Commerce post exit or post sale of a business that I had. And it was just really a way to creatively have an outlet where I could still have maybe a semblance of control over something. Like if you're an entrepreneur and suddenly you've sold your business and you feel like the new owner is sucking every single bit of creativity out of you. This was my outlet or way of being creative on my own and having having a way to um, think of new maybe it's part of the entrepreneurial spirit, but it's more like, hey, this is something new I want to learn, and then I'm going to make the commitment to do it. And I think I've done something like 220 or 230 episodes now consistently week after week, without missing them. And I think that for me, that's just been a commitment in it hasn't been a commitment in cash. Like I'm not rolling in dough from it, but certainly it's been fun just to learn and hear other people's stories.
Yeah, I think the connections we get to make from podcasting, I love the connections. I do love the learning. I do love the insights. I'll be honest with you too. I like to go back and listen to my interviews. And for example, when this interview gets published, I'll go back and listen to it at some point from the learner perspective, or from the not the host perspective, but from an interested party perspective. And man, I'm always amazed at what comes out of the conversations. I'm like, wow, boy, I missed it in the interview, but I learned something when I re-listened. Does that make sense? Or do you have that experience at all?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that um, you miss during the interview, you do miss things that happen in the interview just because either you're working on your next question, or there's just things that get missed in back and forth conversation, and so that second listen is fantastic. And sometimes that's my running mental listen is my own podcast, is hear how it went, and did my sound good? And I've had people tell me, hey, your background music, you didn't duck it right. So there's
Yes.
all kinds of interesting things that if you don't listen to yourself, hey, like, what did I put out there?
Yes. Yes. And then quick, for fun, I am not a programmer, but I do love playing with Chat GPT and AI or Excel spreadsheets now and then, or different things like that. But Python and Bash scripts, if I heard you correctly, you said, I do that to relax. I'll just write some code for fun, or I'll just write some code to relax or check out, or however we do that. When you're doing that, what are you coding? Or is it for your company, or are you just running with an idea that you had in a dream? Or, yeah,
No, it's hardly ever for whatever I'm doing to make money. It's always I I have a GitHub account. It's Brent W. Peterson. I have all kinds of like server scripts that will do stuff. It's mainly for me that maybe save some time as I was being somewhat of a Linux administrator. But now it's more like, hey, I'm interested in some of these new things that are happening. and let me test this in a way that I might or may not utilize it in the future. And it's more for me to learn how to do it rather than to do it for a living. Just to be maybe proficient in it and figure out how is it done. So, example right now is I've met a bunch of other podcasters and we were thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool if we could get some way to ingest a bunch of podcasts, like e-commerce podcasts, and then come up with the highlights. And so I've been working on downloading podcasts through RSS feeds and then have Whisper, which is an OpenAI product, will transcribe it for me and then use ChatGPT to summarize it and have all that just sort of running in the background and then having it spit out, hey, here's the weekly summary of these 10 podcasts. And there's services that do this as well. Don't get me wrong. Like, I could go to a service and there would be some way of consuming all that stuff. But this is for me, this is a little bit more fun to try to do it on my own and using some of that background technology. So you mentioned ChatGPT, instead of just going directly to the interface with ChatGPT on the web, you'd use an API to call it out. And then that API would come back and give you the results in a text format or whatever, and
Yeah.
use it for something else. And I also have a subscription to 11 Labs, which is a voice program. You could theoretically build your podcast of podcasts that has your voice or have another voice there that's talking about the summary of the podcast. So this all could happen automatically without anybody ever speaking a word.
I
Um,
love it.
which if we want to get into the next subject, it is AI and how important it is to have humans involved with AI, and that's kind of what my new business is all about.
Cool. I think this is a great transition to do that. I will tell you as well, before we do that, I will say I use Opus Clips, which is opus.pro, to repurpose content. It does it good enough. You can upload a video and it creates clips. It does it good enough. I'm playing with Chat GPT and transcripts and things to move the words around. So not just truncate or find the good section and then pull out the ums and ahs, but literally remove it around. So that way in a program like Descript, it removes the transcript, the words around, and it edits the video automatically, for example, in a new order. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I use Descript. I haven't used Opus, but I mean, that's a great example of the tools that are out there that are making our lives as podcasters so much easier. When I started in 2020 or 2021, the whole idea of transcripts or the automatic transcripts it was sort of leading edge, and Descript came out and gave us some great tools to do those transcripts. And suddenly, having somebody type up transcripts, which is probably how it happened in 2018 or 2019, that just 5 years ago, people were typing up transcripts still. And certainly there was ways of getting generated transcripts, but they weren't that great. There's a lot of mistakes in them, and this has come we've come leaps and bounds even since ChatGPT came out. I remember when ChatGPT came out, my friend said, "Hey, I'm going to thinking about this new business to summarize podcasts. Like, give me your podcast, let me summarize it." And he did it, and then I went and did it, and it worked great. So there's so many things that you can learn by hearing what other people are doing and just going, circling back to the talk commerce, like you had mentioned Opus, like maybe I'll go check out, see what it does, right? So, you and I talking, or now your audience learning some of these tools in different ways, helps everybody in their business life do things better, whether you're a podcaster or you're a writer or whatever you're doing.
Absolutely. And that's the value. And it pulls it out of the normal context to give us a new perspective, I think is what's so powerful about it. So I can know nothing about programming, but I can hear how just what you said, your process of, hey, summarize podcasts, effectively cliff notes of books, use Whisper AI, 11 Labs, boom, boom, boom. It's like, oh, yeah, yeah. And it makes it real and it makes it real in that I can be on social media and I can see these hyper produced clips that tell us maybe exactly what you just said, but it's so overproduced, it's not real in effect. And so to hear like a real time application is so powerful. So contentbasis.io, let's dive into that. So you said, hey, just a second ago, let's talk about having humans with your AI or the importance of having humans with your AI. Is that, I think that's literally what you said. Yes.
No, that's 100%. And I started using AI before ChatGPT. There's been all kinds of machine learning out there for years. And the one thing that it's never done well is give it to you like a human. It's getting better, and certainly that now the proliferation of generative AI has made writing much more accessible to everybody. But there is a AI voice that's out there. It's a monotone voice that you can pick out that this is AI. Exciting news. Let's delve into that. There's things that people just never said before that suddenly everybody is saying, and that it's AI. And when I'm active on Twitter, I'll say, "Hey, call me out on the tweets that are clearly not written by me," right? Because I experiment with all kinds of AI programs to get content out there, and I want people to call me out on it. And I think that people will recognize when it's not a human that wrote it. And having a human edit whatever's written is important. And that human goes through it and makes it human. So no
Yeah.
matter how you get the content, in my previous business, we had college students writing content for our website. They wrote blog posts. Now they didn't know anything about what they were writing. So they did a great job, but there was a lot of editing, there's a lot of back and forth, and there was not any consistency. So one would argue and this is going to be super controversial, right? Is a college student writing a blog post for you, is that a better blog post than what ChatGPT is going to write for you today? And I would argue they're very similar. Maybe there's more nuance from a human still writing it, but um, once you've edited it, like now some of that time is gone into the editing process rather than the writing process. So boom, you get your article. Now you have an editor go through it and make sure that some of those words that you don't want to have in there are removed, that maybe the references that it's saying, like this study showed 55% of the students in the world are, drinking coffee. What study, right? So now we'll go through and make sure we find a study that does that. But we're also in the same degree leveraging AI to make sure that we can find the right study. And if it's a whole paragraph about a study about people drinking coffee, if we can't find it, we remove it, right? So
Mm.
if you are just doing autopilot AI, and I apologize, the wind's starting to come up now.
Can't
If
even
you
can't even notice it.
Okay,
So
good.
yeah,
If
I'll
if
tell
you're
you
on
if we can.
autopilot AI, you eventually are going to get into garbage, and you are going to have stuff that sounds terrible and isn't true. There's anomalies and there's all kinds of phantom stuff that it makes up, and that's just what happens. And it is going to get better, but we're not. AI isn't being written for robots to read. Like I think a lot of people think that this SEO game for having content is so Google can pick up on this content and rank you in SEO, right? And that's
Yes.
like some of the end goals to this. There's a lot more applications than that, but the goal is that the content that needs to be readable by a human, it's not readable by a robot. And and Bing and all these other search engines are going to consistently change their algorithms to resonate with content that people stick with. So, bounce rate and how in the engagement rate of people on your blog, if they're reading it, that is how your content is going to get ranked. So it has to be readable and it has to be good content. So going back to the human editor, that's what makes that content good.
The human editor makes the content good. What a great
Yeah.
statement. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think part, and I'm really big into Midjourney, which is a image AI, and I have this whole project right now that I'm doing a year of Jack Russell's painted by a famous painter. So I'll take a famous painting. I think Hieronymus Bosch came out today. Um, a famous painting that includes a Jack Russell Terrier. And I started this more than a year ago, and people were saying, well, when Da Vinci was painting, that Jack Russell wasn't even a dog yet. That wasn't even developed as a dog. How could this paint? How could there be a Mona Lisa holding a Jack Russell? Well, it's a joke, right? That's the whole point. Um, in that in that prompting, there's a bit of creativity. So I do also want to go back to that. It's not I mean, let's back up. There's services that you just say, I want to have this topic, and it'll give you, your whatever your paragraphs and blah blah blah. And it's Jasper or Write Sonic or some of those things, right? But so they're kind of doing all those prompts in the background. There is also an art to how you're doing your prompts, whether it's through generative images or video or just text, and there's an art to it, and the people that are getting good at it are the ones that are learning how to make it the way that you want to see it. So I think, part of my relaxation is learning how those prompts work and then working at it to get what you want as a visual.
mm, it's
And the
good.
same thing goes with writing. You want to work your prompts to have the tone of your, like, we have a persona that's written for every one of our clients. We feed in a persona. We feed in the words that our client would never say, and we work with our client to learn. So again, right, going back to having a ghostwriter writing for you, there's going to be a lot of back and forth. There's going to be a lot of editing. Hopefully, as hiring a real writer, you have that same person with you this entire time, which is probably not the case if you're hiring a college student. They're going to turn over. They're going to get somebody new could be every quarter. The advantage of having AI do it is that you can build a persona. You can build instructions on how you would like that AI to write that content. And then that, again, coming back to the consistent full-time human editor, that human editor is going to know how your content should sound and look and feel for the end user.
I love it. I'm going to give you that intro that I introed you on is an excellent example. So I've crafted my prompt in Chat GPT to give me the intro that I like, that I almost need to do no editing with now, but now and then I will, or I'll run it through again. But I've crafted that prompt and saying this is how I want this is what I want the introduction to achieve, right? And and then some tweaks and things like that. And so it's super fun. I love it. And I'm love that you loved the intro. So contentbasis.io. AI content with a human touch. Anyone listening, watching, go to contentbasis.io. But you're helping people, small businesses, big businesses, you're helping you can tell me who your target market is, create content. Yes, that's what we're doing here. Tell me what you
Yeah,
do. Literally,
yeah.
break
So,
it for us.
it started as generating content for articles, blog posts, things like that, but it's really moved into more in-depth things. So maybe for a B2B client, we'll write some white papers where we might take a couple of weeks to produce a document, and we'll use real human beings and research and insight to come up with something that we think is valuable for the client. And of course, the client has to see it to be valuable to pay for it, right? So we believe that putting that extra effort in. So white papers for case studies where we're doing client interviews, right? So just like you and I are doing this, we'll do an interview, we'll record the entire interview. And from that interview comes a ton of great content, right? So if we want to do a case study for a client, we'll interview the stakeholder, we'll interview the client, it themselves, so the end user or the person who's the client of the client, as well as the maybe a project manager in that process, and get all those stories together. And what we've found is that trying to get a case study done is incredibly difficult. Trying to get the client to fill out a form and then find somebody to write it is hard. And any size company, I mean, certainly a bigger company that has more resources or has a person that's devoted just to doing that can get those done. But that SMB, that medium size, maybe agency or business, they struggle at getting those done. And if you can hand that off to say, hey, Brent and team, can you meet with my client? Can you record all this? Can you then write up a really great sounding and looking case study that will resonate with our other clients so they know that we're doing what we're doing, right? So it's not just writing a blog post about whatever, it's writing content that resonates for the audience that the end user needs to resonate with,
I
if
love
that
it.
made any sense.
It does. So to recap, so you're in effect in the case study example, you're interviewing your client, which is the service provider or the product provider. They're selling something, and you're interviewing them and getting good, rich content about what they do, how they do it, how they got into it, their epiphany bridge or their Star Wars Luke Skywalker moment. What's the hero's journey? That's what I was looking for. You're getting all that good, rich content in their words, in their language. You're catching their catchphrases, the nuances that make them special, I guess is what I would say. And then you're interviewing, I think you called them what did you call your customer, the stakeholder? So that's the service provider or the person selling the product. Then you've got the end user or their client who's had success with that, or it's helped them achieve a certain ROI or get to an outcome more efficiently, whatever if it's a product that's made them feel better or chop onions quicker. Sorry, I'm going on a full
Yeah,
riff here.
a chopper.
Yes, a chopper. And and then you're interviewing somebody who helped facilitate. So if somebody is providing a service and there's a project manager, you're bringing that project manager in to get even more nuance, and then you're creating that case study so that somebody else who might go, man, I could use that kind of service, that kind of support, that kind of thing. They can go, oh man, there's a real life example that's, gosh, nuanced in context, has all the key bits of the story and in the right language, most importantly. Yeah, is that
Yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly that's that's the direction we're going in, and that's the type of valuable content that I think that having humans plus some AI can deliver by combining all those different pieces together and making it into a cohesive document. Because I think one thing, it's hard to get it's hard to get all that information together to then to summarize it in a way that somebody could understand. And one thing that we've learned is that ChatGPT or whatever and whatever LLM you're using, they're great at summarizing text, right? So I think that even in a transcript, that's a great place to have a generative AI program help us better understand what's there. So you could have it summarize a blog post, you could have it summarize your whole podcast and give you the highlights out of that. And that's by not only having and sitting and listening to do the interviews, but then having it, let's just say, out of an hour, you're going to get how many pages of content, but you only wanted to have it. We only need a one pager, right? So
yeah.
you're the advantage you have is not only are we sitting and listening and doing that interview, but now we have that firsthand knowledge to know how it should look and sound and feel for the end result. And so then having generative AI then summarize it and us then making sure that it is right and it sounds good, gives us a great product at a competitive price. And I think that's the key that we want to talk about. This is not tens of thousands of dollars. This is whatever, $500-600 to do a case study. So it is a competitive price as well.
I love it. In the current marketing world arena, call it what you will, environment, case studies, testimonials, social proof is so, so, so important. And the more authentic, the better. So helping somebody get that case study, I think especially if you're looking to scale and really break past your sphere of influence or your current social media network, which is what so many people are trying to do is break through that network, right? Because we all have our social media network and we're trying to expand out of those bounds. I I think I'm saying that accurately. I think that getting case studies is so, so powerful. So I love it. You're gathering the stories, you're using AI to summarize it, give it that those first passes or whatever. Hey, here's our prompting, or maybe you're doing it through API connections. So you've created your own program or something. I don't know if I'm saying it right. I might be sounding ignorant now, but you're able to spin up that usable case study a whole bunch faster or a super lot faster. And then you can put the final touches on it and go, wait a minute, this is not right. Or where did you come up with this this fact? Or no, our customer doesn't talk like that. And refine it and make it super juicy and keep that nuance in there. So when the human is reading it and or watching it, they're relating to it and not the computer. Yeah, I think is ultimately what you're hinting at. Yes,
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head.
super a
Super
lot,
lot faster. It's
super a
like
lot faster.
Japan super dry.
Oh my gosh, have you seen the new McDonald's commercials? I don't know what I was watching, and they've taken this is a total random side note, but they Japanese Japanese anime. They've they've started applying that to McDonald's chicken McNuggets. Unbelievable. Sorry, but the super lot reminded me that'd be something like that you would see in the Japanese anime. A super lot. Anyway, um, where was I going to go with this? Okay, so I have somebody. I used to get video testimonials for people, and I had my perfect video testimonial system, my 5-step system for getting your customers to gladly do your selling for you, which is ultimately what we want. And I loved it. And the testimonials got me into the game. But randomly, people will come to me and go, "Hey, Mish, I need you to get me some testimonials." And I'm like, "Well, I kind of focus on podcasting right now and helping you guest speak on podcasts and getting your stories in line." And but that type of person, someone comes to me and goes, "Hey, I need to build some case studies. I need to get some customer testimonials." That is somebody that you want to talk to.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be just case studies, but somebody that wants to develop content, long-term content for their site. It doesn't have to be case studies. It could be landing pages. It could be, like I said, white papers, written content, written research documents that's about something in their industry. Um, anything like that. And I think part of that is how can you move the ball forward with SEO if you're starting from nothing. You're going to have to get content written, and you need a lot of content about something to show that you're an expert in something. And I think, we now have clients that are in maybe stretching or like stretch labs type of businesses where um they really need to make sure that it's not medical, but it is, things that people are doing with their bodies, and they're experts in it, right? So we'll write the content, and then they sign off on it before it goes live. So there's all kinds of things that have to happen. But if they don't have that content, if they don't have those blog posts about what is the best way to stretch, or what is the best way to recover from a foot injury or whatever, that they don't, people are looking on the web to find answers to their questions. And they'll go to a service that has an authoritative answer to it. And the more content that's out there on that are going to win with Google. And the more people that read it and resonate with it are going to be higher ranked with Google. So I have an experiment if we have some time. I did an experiment on this more than a year ago, and it's called the Cricket Project.
Cool. I before we jump into the cricket project and your experiment, which we have time to do, and I can't wait to do it. If I heard you correctly, you just said, "Hey, Misha, we can help somebody go from the ground up, build out all their SEO rich content, blog posts, white papers, all that stuff, all the stuff that we see when we see a website where we go, wow, that's my resource. That's the person I want to use for this. That's and when we're searching, they come up. They become I don't know, you just help people rise up SEO. You're helping people build SEO rich content. Bottom line, like let's get people rising up in the rankings so you will be found with your content. Yes. So then they can buy from you or take advantage of your services.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that, we look to work with the client to figure out what is their target audience. We want to know what their industry or niche is for their own business. Then we want to come up with these keywords that resonate for them. Now, this isn't just about keyword stuffing, it's about writing content that resonates with keywords that people are searching for. We want to look at who they're competing against. And then we want to know what their goals are. We want to know what success is for that content. And then how they would like to see it done. Do they want LinkedIn? Do they want Medium? Do they want just on their blog or just social? There's all kinds of things that we work with them in advance to make sure that this is the kind of content that they want. And then I know in the intro you said we do a predictive analytics. We are wired into their Google Search Console. We see what people are looking for. We see the questions that people are asking about something. And we look for items that are kind of creeping up for impressions, but aren't on the first page in Google. So you will see in the Google Search Console, you may be on page 80, right? You've shown up as an impression on page 80 for whatever the subject. Let's talk about crickets, right? A cricket protein powder. I'm showing up on page 80. What companies use cricket protein powder? Okay, I'm showing up on page 80. How can I get higher up in the rankings for that? Let's start let's start writing some content around it. That works into things that are bespoke of a single central point. So your central point is we'll call it cricket powder or cricket flour, right? But there's all kinds of items that relate to it, and those start showing up as you're analyzing the things that people are searching for. So when I say predictive analytics, you're not only thinking about what people are going to do. So there's a human creativity involved in this, but there's also some machine creativity or some actual, real life analytics that we can apply to it. So we know a person is looking for something to do with whatever the thing is, right? And we can start writing content about that thing. And then we can really dig into it. Like I think I started with just what is cricket protein powder or what is cricket flour, and it just blossomed from there. And suddenly, and it's been now a couple of months since I've written anything about it, but for a while I was number one on that. I was outranking any manufacturer for cricket flour or cricket protein powder, and it was just really an experiment in how I could not only learn about it, but then I could use the techniques that we use for our clients to go from absolutely zero to owning that spot on whatever that keyword is. And let's try it right now. I'm going to type in what companies use cricket flour, and I don't, it's actually Chirps comes up as number, and I wrote the article exploring the adoption of cricket flour by top tier brands.
There you are. Talk commerce. I see it. Exploring the
It's
the
it's
adoption.
crazy, right? I mean, and I think this article I've been continuing to update. It looks like the last time I updated was a year or February 20, 2023. So it's been more than a year. But I do come back to them and I do add content to them. And, none of these are just inventions that I've been able to do in a minute. So some of these are, especially where you're doing research about specific brands, and I actually go out and I reach out to those brands and I say, would you like to comment on this? And this industry is very, I want to say mom and pop, but it's very specific and very non-web. It's been incredibly difficult to get anybody involved. It started as a joke. My friend and I were doing a podcast together more than a year, 18 months ago. And he said, Brent, wouldn't it be great if we had a sponsor, a cricket protein powder sponsor? And I wrote a quick little blog post about it using generative AI. This is way before Chat GPT came out, using one of those services like Jasper. And it gave me this article, and I just posted it verbatim. And I wrote on the article, this is all stuff that was just generated by a machine. That's all it was. But I'm interested in finding a sponsor. That's like if you're interested, I'll double down on this to help you as a sponsor. We never got a sponsor, but I did double down on the content because I found it was interesting. And I found that one article I wrote started getting traction. And I haven't written anything about like that article that we just Googled is more than a year. It's a year old now, but you can see how it takes a while for you to get in SEO. SEO is people will argue that SEO is a smoke and mirrors, or it's a magic box, or it's a black box. There is a science to it, and there is a content continuously writing content about the subject that you're interested in, and making sure that you're up on it, and that whatever you're writing is real. So the people that are going to get penalized because they're writing generative AI content for SEO are the ones that are just throwing up content without thinking what they're doing. And
Yes.
that's the crap content that we're going to see that's going to get penalized.
Yeah. And I imagine as more people enter the fray, there'll be so much bad content that the good content will rise above quickly. Usually what happens. I could be in denial. So when you say somebody's sponsoring, you know, your cricket project, you're basically saying, look, I've got, I'm top ranking SEO wise with my content for cricket protein. Do you want to be on that landing page? Do you, right? Is that what you mean by sponsor it? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we as a joke, we just said, hey, I reached out to the top three brands and I say, I'll run you as a ad on my podcast. I won't charge you. I just like to have you as you have to sponsor the podcast. It's free sponsorship, but you're basically, one of the biggest ones, they said, yeah, we'll do it. Then they declined.
Okay.
So I suppose there's some risk that it's kind of a joke. But having said that, then, after a while, I doubled down on it. I'm very persistent and I'm winning at it. And even though I think in my November of 2023 was my biggest month for cricket, but it was the last time I wrote anything. But I had like 25,000 clicks, not impressions, clicks on that keyword. Like 25,000 people in the
Wow.
month of November came to my website just to
So
learn more about cricket powder.
make the connection between sponsoring your podcast and then how does that help them with
It didn't help me at all. I was just
no,
trying
no,
to get
not you,
sponsored.
them.
Oh,
Make the connection, right?
I see.
Because
Okay. Well, I
you're
mean, the
talking
sponsoring
about
would, yeah. And I think I feel like anytime somebody sponsors you, you're putting somebody else's word out there. It's just like people are guests on podcasts to network and get their word out about whatever they're doing. So
yeah.
I feel as though, cricket protein is an important part, and I eat crickets. I'll go to Mexico and I'll have I'll have cricket tacos. I mean, I believe in it. Uh, and it's another source. It's a natural source of protein.
Okay, I
So
love it. Okay, so you're talking about whoever one of these major manufacturers, and you're, hey, my podcast sponsored by, major manufacturer of cricket protein, but I'm not seeing the connection between that and then what you're creating that's rising up the rankings. So when someone searches cricket powder, you see my disconnect.
yeah, I
So,
mean, one led to another. The
okay,
joke was, I'll ask for a free sponsor, and then nobody wanted to do even a sponsorship for free. Like, that
okay,
was the joke, and I
yes,
didn't put it forward as a joke,
yes,
but
yes.
in my persistence, I said to myself, because you don't want to do this, I'm going to prove that, hey, we're a valuable place that you could theoretically sponsor, because we're getting all this traffic about crickets.
I got you. No,
It's a
but what I'm
it's
trying
a
to say,
really long way to get around to it.
yeah, yeah, I got it. I think you're missing my question. And so I understand. Let's say this is all real and it wasn't a joke or what have you, but you literally could do this and somebody could have got sponsored for free and somehow gotten 25,000 impressions in the month of November that referenced them because it's windy. Go ahead.
As a bird.
Oh, nice. Oh my gosh.
He just like went right over my head, and there's a
Yeah.
bunch of them out here, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess how would you tie assuming that all went down and somebody would have taken advantage of it. I guess I'm not seeing the connection between the podcast and the content showing up on Google rankings. You understand?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I
like
see where you're going. There's not really a connection between the podcast itself. I
yeah.
think that the only connection was that, no, that I got rejected for the free sponsorship, which I still can't understand. I don't know the downside for somebody if it's a real ad, right? They have
Okay.
creative control over the ad.
Right.
Um, I don't I didn't see why somebody wouldn't do a free sponsorship for the podcast. And so, because they rejected me, I was going to
Oh,
prove that we could
you're
do
like
this. Yeah, we could be an authoritative part of the cricket community. Yeah. And in a completely serious way. All the content I write is completely factual. It's not, and no BS, right? It's all
yeah.
real. And I've learned a ton about it. Uh, and I feel as though we're an active venue for a potential sponsor for cricket powder, right? I mean, um, there's absolutely no reason to do it, but we do have a lot of traffic about crickets. That's all there is to it, right?
Understood. Hey, listeners, thank you for making it through that. And you're praying that you're going, Misha, do not ask the question again. Move on. I'm going to move on. I, I love it. Okay, so quick. I have two more questions for you, and then I'm going to let you get back to your day, and and because that took longer than it needed to. Um, do you have any favorite customer stories of people that you're helping them rise up the rankings as they take advantage. They find you on contentbasis.io and they're like, "Hey, yeah, Brent, we want to work with you." And so, do you have any like real-time results of people that you're elevating them and helping them get an ROI or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that the ones that stick with us, that the customers that we have, and we just celebrated our first year now. We started in March of last year, so that we're coming up on 1 year of being an official business. Um, and we've had now customers this entire time. So I think that having customers this whole time, and seeing us through, startups are startups, and startups can be, in that phase of being a startup, you're learning along with your customer. And I appreciate the customers that have stuck with us over the last year. and I think the ones that we've had the most success with are the ones that don't see AI as an end all be all magic tool. They see AI as a part of the whole process in content development, and that a lot of that back and forth that happens with a real writer, a real human writer, and I invite people to email me and come to me on LinkedIn or whatever to debate about human writing versus AI writing. Um, that interaction between the client and the writer, or the writer and the editor, has to happen, and then it's there's no magic between developing an AI and giving you good content. That I appreciate, the clients that we have the most success with, that are having the most uplift in what they're doing, are the ones that are appreciative of this process, and that are willing to go that sort of back and forth that you would have with any real writer. The I can have one success. I can't name the client, but we would write very long form technical pieces, like say 4 to 5,000 words, where it would typically take them a week to produce the content. We would produce the content in say a day, and then it would take them a day to kind of read through it to make sure it was all right. So we cut 80% of the time out of their day or their week to produce some content for them, and then we would edit it, they would edit it to make sure it's in their voice and changing it the way they wanted to see it. And we've had incredible success with that. And I think the longer the content is, the more human has to be involved, right? So I mean, ChatGPT has always been great at writing 400 words. Even if you say to ChatGPT, give me a 3,000 word document, it's going to give you a 600 word document, no matter what, right? It's not going to give you what you want. So some of this is piecing together longer pieces. So some of the other services will piece them together, but then a lot of times they're not cohesive. So again, coming back to having a human involved and making sure that it's cohesive, those are the ones that we've had the most success with. And not only the ones that are patient and want to work through the process, but then the ones that we've been able to come up with new ideas, and the ones that we use our predictive analytics to come up with new topics that resonate with their audience. Because I think not only, like I said earlier, that there is a science to it, right? There's an analytical science to it. And the analysis comes from things that are happening in the background that they don't know that are happening. So I go back to that impression that's happened in Google that's on page 80. So we work with them on that, but then also knowing what they know and they wish would happen. So going back to the cricket conversation, right? I wish crickets were number one on my website. I don't understand why they're not, right? Oh, because you don't have any content about crickets. So you know that 0 to 60, the biggest wins we get is when it's nothing and we can get something going, right? Because that's an easy one. So we recently signed a client that was again in the stretching business, right? And I think Stretch Labs is a national one. So this is just a single a business, but we're able to get lots of content going. And I know that now he's in our last meeting, he said that 20% of his new leads are coming from his website, and that they're finding it through searching about active release and things like that. So those are real life examples. Like he's taking phone calls and he's booking appointments on his website. So those are the ones that are really resonating.
Amazing. And then let's say I said, hey, I want you to help me. And I specialize in helping people guest speak on podcasts. Do you do your research and go, yeah, there's not enough traffic for that? Or do you go, there is enough traffic in the current world for whatever micro niche you have, we're going to elevate you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's long tail keywords that people are going to search for, and if nobody's searching for something, of course, there's not a market for it, right? Maybe
Yes.
people aren't searching for chocolate covered poop crickets or whatever, right? Or maybe they want them for their dogs. Like, we always used to say that the cat's sandbox was the best place for the dogs to get little treats. I know that's disgusting. Sorry. Crunchy on the outside and soft in the middle. For a puppy, that's perfect. Uh, yeah, and I digress.
And we
Sorry.
digress.
Yeah,
It's
very quickly.
hey.
But
So I guess
having
my
said
question.
that, there is a long tail play for everything. And if you have a website and it's as niche as you want it to be, and you have a service that people buy, people are going to search for it online.
Amazing. And I think you answered my question. And you are going to be straight up with somebody and go, "Hey, I've not come across a niche that is too small, but you have found the thing that nobody cares about." So I can't help you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Cost wise, someone goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm ramping up. I've got an idea. I've had some success. I want to now build a site around it to help me sell, scale, grow, get new leads. Uh, in 3 minutes or less, process cost. What are we talking about?"
Yeah, so our basic plan is $700 a month. It gives you two pieces of content per week, plus it will give you 6 to 10 social posts on every piece of content. So multiply your two times, let's say six, so 12 social posts, plus a custom image that's in a theme. And that includes a bi-weekly meeting. So we run it like a development company. We call it a sprint, a bi-weekly meeting where we go over here's what we see are the terms that are resonating. Here's the topics that we're going to do for you in the next 8 to 12 weeks. We'll give you a calendar. And then you, as the client, would say, I like this topic, or here's what we would like to write about, or this is an industry specific thing that we're seeing. We'd like to write about it. Or by the way, we were just at this event and we want like a summary. Here's all the notes we have. Give us a nice article about that event and here's some pictures. And then the next 2 weeks, we'll see, hey, how did that work? Or how are we doing on this? Or is there anything new you'd like to interject? Or I don't have anything. Oh, good thing we already have 8 weeks of content planned for you. And so that's $700. We write just straight up landing pages for about $200 a page, depending obviously how long it is. And case studies I mentioned is $600 for a case study. And these are trials. I think that we're learning that maybe it'll take a little longer, but we part of this learning is us making a process that works. And then we go into some very long form things that could be $6 to $10,000. So let's just say it's a research project that takes us a month to do. So
Amazing.
that's
I love it. Thank you.
yeah. There's all anything. Yeah.
Cool. So contentbasis.io, check it out. There's also got a pricing page which explains much of what you just said. And so, two final questions, which are super easy. Your stretch lab type company, which which package are they taking that's helping them? Are they doing the $600 a month one, or are they doing which one are they doing?
Yeah, they're on the $700. They're doing 2 articles a week.
Amazing. And they're finding incredible lift from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Beautiful.
that's good for people just starting. And we do have people that have done long form. So we'll do something like instead of 2 articles a week, we'll do one very long article a week. So long, more in depth.
Super cool. Super cool. Fantastic. And then lastly, contentbasis.io, that's where people can find you. If somebody goes, "This is awesome. The cricket challenge resonated with me. I need to get SEO rich content that's valuable to my customers out there so they can find me, so they can start booking appointments with me, start saying they want to work with me." How is somebody going to get a hold of you?
They can email Brent at contentbasis.io, or they can call me 808-210-3611. And nobody uses phones anymore, right? 808-210-3611. And by the way, there's some new programs that are writing jingles, and I've been having a great time writing dumb little jingles, and I should have had one ready. And I have to do one about 808-210-3611, blah, 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 right? So maybe that's what I'll do next.
I love it. Amazing. And the jingle will come storming back. You'll be on the front of the rebirth of the jingle of the jingle movement. That is amazing. So good. I watch, you watch Netflix and then you find that sound that Netflix now has that so you associate that sound with Netflix, and it's so fun to watch as companies get big and gain traction. They create their sound, that 3 second sound, right?
Yeah, even when you get onto a Zoom call, that little ding dong that happened originally, the Book of Mormon, if you listen to the soundtrack, there's a ding dong. That's what the Zoom thing always said to me.
Oh my God. So good, Brent. We could go on and on and on. And thank you for the banter, and thank you for being patient with me as we got to the meat of what you do. This has been a ton of fun, and I do want to be respectful of your time. I'm going to hit stop. And actually, I'm not. I'm going to ask you, because I love ending with this question. Anything that we missed, or I will hit stop and you'll go, gosh, we covered a lot, but I wished I'd have said, what is that?
Yeah, so I support mileinmyshoes.mn, mileinmyshoes.mn, and there's a bunch of fundraising that's happening. I would go to the website and you can donate money directly to them. I'm doing a fundraiser. I'm running the Grandma's Half Marathon this year in June as a fundraiser, where I'm doing it to try to get the money for the cause. Mileinmyshoes.mn, and it's a great cause, and it should be everywhere. It's for the Twin Cities, the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, but it could be in any city. And there's people that are homeless that are trying to recover from drug abuse, or they're coming out of prison. There's all kinds of people that need your help and support.
Amazing. Thank you, Brent. Thank you so much. I love that. I'm going to hit stop and we'll say goodbye offline.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.